A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another RPG review. Today I'm looking at Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations. This was a source book that came out for Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, or 3.5 if that's the way you roll. It was not a source book that I had back in the day when I was actually running 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. I actually purchased this from a fantastic guy over here in South Korea who sold me this and 2 Dragonlance source books that he was selling off of Facebook. So I was really happy to get my hands on a copy of this. They made some of these kind of source books that dealt with different types of monsters, aberrations, kind of like the weirder, stranger, more cosmic style entities that your players can come up against from different planes of existence and things like that. They are the weird and the wonderful monsters that when a first-time player of Dungeons & Dragons comes up against them, if you're doing your job right, they're going to shit their pants. Have no idea. This isn't your orcs, this isn't your goblins, this isn't your bugbears and hobgoblins and things like that. Your dragons. These are the scary ones. These are the ones that have the weird-ass powers. Aberrations is still a monster type in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So some of these monsters, you know, do appear in 5th edition. So let's kind of have a look-see at what's in this book. Okay, our introduction, basically what you need to play the game. And then the chapter 1 is what is an aberration? The origins of aberrations, out of space, out of time, things like that. Aberrations in Eberron. So sometimes in these books you get these little sidebars where certain realms have different types of aberrations. So you've got the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Krynn, Planescape, all that kind of stuff. So they appear occasionally. The planes. Now the art in this book is top-notch, absolutely phenomenal. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. Aberration characteristics. So what you effectively want your aberration to be is a big bad. Be it an entire race you're going up against, or just one creature that's kind of controlling everything. Sinister masterminds, inimical to nature, unhuman. These are all what aberrations are. To have a campaign that you want to kind of focus on aberrations. It gives you some hints on how to do that. It's got this great table for adventure ideas. There's 40 of them here. And then we get into chapter 2, the first of our aberrations, the Aboleth. Now, I absolutely love the Aboleth. They are a disgusting creature type. They're basically these multi-eyed, tentacled fish geniuses that can create slaves. And when they're used correctly, as in the novels that they've appeared in, like Plague of Spells and whatnot, they're absolutely fantastic. Some of the Dungeons & Dragons scenarios that have used Aboleths have used them really well. So it was really great to see this in here. We get a picture of the anatomy of the Aboleth, which is horrifically disgusting, but you get that for all of them. So their internal anatomy talks about it. Then we get the Aboleth life. So each one of these aberrations, you get in-depth looks at them, like to the nth degree, that will help a dungeon master craft a villain perfectly if you could be bothered to read this, which I have. And there we have a look at an aboleth. There's variant aboleths, so different ones that you can actually use. Then we have some class features. So you kind of get this idea that, like, the Savant aboleth has like prestige classes that go along with it. A new 9th level cleric spell. Different feats that the aboleth can take. Now, these all can be used to just enhance your villain. You don't need to use them. An aboleth is scary enough on its own. But if you want to make it a little more challenging, let's say your players have come up against an aboleth before, and when you run that encounter, they know the aboleth's weaknesses. You can fucking mindfuck them if you want to. Aboleth magic, master glyphs, psionic abilities, the Nightmare Out of Time. So we have the religion of the aboleths, where it lists like the aboleth deities. The language, relationship with other creatures, and aboleth lairs, aboleth minions, aboleth cults, all of these things. But here's what sets this book out. We have a sample aboleth character that the Dungeon Master can use in his game. We not only have that, but we have the God in the Lake, an adventure, like a mini adventure that you can throw into your campaign, complete with maps, statistics, the whole lot. That is amazing. For a book like this, that is absolutely phenomenal. If you want to use an aboleth, you don't know where to start, hey, you've got the map right here. You've got all the descriptions. Knock yourself out. Next, we come on to one of the most iconic characters, or creatures, I should say, in Dungeons & Dragons, and that is the Beholder. Now, one of my all-time favorite video game series back in the day, Eye of the Beholder. Unbelievable. If you can actually get this to play, and I believe you can get it on GOG, it is one of the greatest RPG dungeon crawling adventures ever created in the history of video games, and I will challenge anyone to a pillow fight if you disagree with me. Now, Beholders, for those of you that don't know, are basically an orb with a central eye, fanged mouth, and then 10 eye stalks, and each eye stalk can shoot out a different magical effect. The most famous Beholder in the Forgotten Realms is, of course, Xanathar. He is on the cover of Xanathar's Guide to Everything from 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So we have Beholder anatomy. So we get a cross-section of where all the brains and guts and gore and stuff is. The eyes. And then it just goes through the same thing. Beholder life. Beholder Mage is a new class feature. Beholder feats, Beholder magic, Beholder society. I believe as well, it was I think it was Baldur's Gate 2 Shadows Under Am had a fantastic Beholder enemy, which was really difficult to kill. Minions, cults, and then we have a Beholder's Lair. If you want to throw this into your game, you can. And then we have Cult of the Hungry Eye. So here's a temple dedicated to Beholders that you can throw into your game. Just awesome. Again, the art is great. We move on to Mind Flayers. Mind Flayers are one of the most iconic Dungeons and Dragons creatures. I said the Beholder was iconic, and it really is. But so are the Illithids. So are the Mind Flayers. These are basically octopus-headed people that can drain your mind by putting their tentacles around your brain. Just awesome. They live in the Underdark. They take slaves. So we get their internal anatomy as well. Although we don't get kind of a picture of it here. Mouth and tentacles, illithid senses, reproduction, all that kind of stuff. Different variants on the illithids. Illithid magic. The Whispering Shadow. Okay, so this is language, religion. There is a whole kind of big thing based around the illithids dominating and destroying certain races and things like that. And I believe the opening of Baldur's Gate 3, although I haven't played it, has a spell-jamming illithid ship crashing into Baldur's Gate, although that's only from what I can gather from the trailer. I haven't played it, so correct me if I'm wrong. Mind Flayer goals, you know, expanding knowledge and whatnot. Then we have an illithid lair, a Mind Flayer lair. We have another one, the Lair of Sarkt. Here. Some intellect devourers, which are basically brain dogs that are just brains with legs. Next, we come up to the slave takers, the Neogi. These are disgusting. These are like spider alien creatures that are merchants and slavers across the outer planes. And we get all of the usual stuff about their life and their goals and their magic and whatnot. And then we have, I believe that is Wreck of the Mind Spider, an adventure with one of the greatest pictures I've ever seen in a Dungeons & Dragons book. Look at that. That is a Neogi ship. Okay. Next are the Grell. Now, the Grell are a race that are really near and dear to my heart for one particular reason. There was a mega dungeon that was released for 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons, where you basically traveled all the way down through the Underdark. The name of it escapes me at the moment, but basically what happened is you would go down through the levels of the Underdark, and the creatures would get progressively more difficult until I think the big bad was an Aboleth in that scenario, but there were like Kuatoa and all this kind of stuff. My group didn't get very far. I ran it when I was in high school, and my group didn't get very far because one of the players got kind of mind fucked and betrayed the group in the funniest way possible by trapping them in a tunnel and then squashing them with an expanding house. We all had a good laugh, and then we just moved on to the next thing. And then this thing sat on my shelf for the longest time until I moved to university, and I moved in with a couple of housemates, and one of them wanted to run it for her Dungeons & Dragons group, and they had an absolute blast with it. And the stories that I heard that came out of that game were completely batshit insane and exactly what you wanted for an adventure like that. But why am I talking about that now? Because the Grell are in that. And the Grell in 2nd edition, I had no idea what they were, what their stats were, what they should do, but they had just released a monster manual. Was it 2nd edition or 3rd edition? I'm pretty sure it was 2nd edition. Anyway, they just released this new monster manual. Back in the day, it was all folders with loose leaf sleeves, and this was an actual book. This was like a brand new reprinted book, color pictures, the whole shebang. And Grell was one of the monsters in that. So I remember taking the train from Katoomba to Sydney. Those of you that know that, that's a 2-hour fucking journey. And if you miss that train, you're waiting an hour for the next one. So, you know, so I get the train down to Sydney. I go down to the hobby store that I always used to go to in Sydney that had all the great role-playing stuff. And I bought a copy of it. I walked back to the train station and caught the next train back to Katoomba just to have the statistics and information on the Grell. I do not regret a single fucking minute of that journey. I didn't even have lunch or do anything in Sydney. I just walked there, got the book, walked back to the station. I was in Sydney for literally 20 minutes. And I was on a train for 4 hours just to get the information on Grells. That is how much I fucking love role-playing. I would do it again in a heartbeat, don't get me wrong. This was before the internet. We couldn't look this stuff up. I mean, we kind of had the internet, but it wasn't really the internet. So, Grells. Now, these things are basically brains and tentacles with a beak, no eyes. They can wield weapons and use magic items and stuff. You can see this is just like the head area with the beak and the tentacles. I remember in the adventure, they were lurking above a tunnel in the dark, and when the adventurers walked underneath them, they would drop down and try and kind of grab them. So you get Grell Society, some great pictures of them, leaders and whatnots, and Grell magic. You get a little Grell outpost, which is really cool. I mean, these things are just so worth it. And even if you don't use the whole book, there's something in here that you can use. There really is. And then we get the usual stuff. Here, the end of the adventure. Next we have the Sochar. These are these really weird parasitic assassins. So you can see here, they have the ability to basically inhabit a body and control that body like a puppet. Different variants on them. Society, magic, the same thing you've seen in all the others. The House of Deros Frist. So we have a Sochar tower here. A guy that's been overrun by a Sochar. So that they are the aberrants that they kind of go into depth with. But then they bring us new monsters. Oh, hell yeah. The first are the Beholderkin. So we have different variants on the Beholder. What do we have? We have the Hive Mother, Devourer, the Eye of... the Director, sorry. And the Eye of the Deep. That's an underwater Beholder. We have an Overseer here. A Spectator. We have the Sildebring. These are like these scorpion-looking things. A Cloaker, Shadowcloak Elder. Now, Cloakers are another great aberration that are like manta rays kind of a thing that drop down on you from up on high. We have the Elder Brain. This is the Mind Flayer leader. It's just in a Mind Flayer city, there's a giant brain in a jar. That's it. That's what you get. Elder Eidolon. A Gas Spore, which is kind of like a fake Beholder. A Gibbering Mouther. Probably from 2nd edition, my most favourite Forgotten Realms monster in the game. I believe the Gibbering Mouther came in the Forgotten Realms folio. And it's basically slime with eyes and mouths that just kind of chatters and tries to absorb you. Disgustingly great. A half Farspawn. A Hound of the Gloom, which kind of resembles a Displacer Beast, but with more tentacles. Illith Day. Alhoon. This is a Mind Flayer that has become a Lich, which is something that is frowned upon in Mind Flayer society. An Ulatharid. That is kind of like a taller, more powerful Mind Flayer that are commonly viewed as deities or basically like emissaries to the Elder Brain. I was running a campaign for my players back in the day, where they were tasked with finding 5 urns filled with the ashes. I believe it was the ashes of a dead god or something like that. I can't remember whose ashes they were. But they were scattered across the plains. It was a planescape campaign. So they travelled to, they started in the Forgotten Realms, travelled to Sigil in Planescape. They went to Krynn during the War of the Lance, where they actually had to, the urn was in Lord Soth's Keep, Dargard Keep, which was ultimately where the campaign ended because they died. But I had one of the urns was in the plane where the Illithid's god was, so they were basically inside the god's brain, and they'd be walking around through this brain. I got a lot of these ideas from this website that people would post free adventures that you could look at and use or whatnot. It was a lot of fun. That campaign was absolutely hilarious. But when they died, we just started again, so that's the way it goes. Vampiric Mind Flayer, a pseudo-natural creature. This looks like a hippogriff or a griffin of some kind. Hippogriff. I was right, look at that. A Surlon varieties. These are like alien-looking things. Shaboeth, shadow creature. Silthala, a Europhion. This is when, basically to grow a Mind Flayer, you put the larva in someone's brain, and then the larva eats the brain, and then it'll grow up to be a Mind Flayer. This is what happens when you put it into a Roper. Now, a Roper is an Underdark creature that is like a stalagmite with tentacles, and it looks like a rock, and then when you walk past it, it opens its eyes and just attacks the shit out of you. A Zugalak. So that is all the new monsters. They're pretty cool, I will admit. Then we come to the Aberration Hunter. These are your prestige classes if you want to play in a campaign where you're specifically hunting aberrations. So it tells you about aberration hunters and how they deal with all of them, minions and cultists. And then we get to feats that you can take, new feats. So you can Aberration Bane Magic, Aberration Blood, Aberration Wild Shape, Aquatic Spellcasting, Darkstalk, all of these things. Then we get to prestige classes. So prestige classes back in the day were when you got to a certain level and you met certain requirements, you could take a prestige class. And a prestige class, for example, if you wanted to be the Abolisher, you cannot be an aberration, any non-chaotic alignment. You had to have Knowledge Dungeoneering 4 ranks and Knowledge Nature 9 ranks. You had to have the Track Feat and Wild Empathy class feature. And if you had those, when you leveled up, you could say, I'm taking 1 level in Abolisher, and then you would start getting these different class features. So you would be whatever class you were plus Abolisher level 1. Prestige classes were great for kind of, you know, if 2 players in the group are fighters, they're leveling up the same. Sure, they might be picking different feats and whatnot, but they're primarily the same. When you take a prestige class, you become something new and different and more powerful. Prestige classes are powerful. They had a few of them in the Dungeon Master's Guide back in 3rd edition. I believe one of them was the Assassin. So it's always good to see new prestige classes. So we have the Abolisher. We have the Dark Runner. The Flesh Warper. Disgusting. Keeper of the Cerulean Sign. You can see they're trying to keep the aberrations out. Sanctified Mind. Topaz Guardian. And they're all your prestige classes. Okay, so there's quite a few of them, one for each kind of group. So there's the warrior one, the cleric one, the wizard one, and so on and so forth. Typical of this kind of a book. Then we move on to magic. These are these new spells that you can pick when you're leveling up to help you and kind of add some spells to the class lists. Because, you know, back in the day, each class had their certain spells. I guess it's the same now. Then you have like Arms of Plenty, Blast of Force, Bolts of Bedevilment. So you have all of these new kind of spells that you can use, some more powerful than others. Then you've got your magic items here, which are always fun. You know, the Rod of Freedom, Ring of Lightning Flashes, things like that. Now, graphs. This is a really interesting section. You can actually graft body parts onto yourself, especially with like the flesh grafter. And when you do, you get extra abilities, which is kind of sick but kind of funny. So Illithid grafts, and I believe we have and Silthar grafts. So you can kind of item creation graft flesh. So you can get like Burrowing Claws, Dark Side Eyes, Mind Blast Relay, things like that. And then some cults, or I should say groups, not cults, that are fighting against the aberrations. The Circle of the True, the Dark Runner Guild, Society of the Sanctified Mind. And then here's a sample member of the Order, the Topaz Order. And then we have the kind of Dungeons & Dragons stuff at the end, and some Eberron books. And that is Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations. If you can get your hands on a copy of this, I highly recommend it because it's a disturbingly good read. If you're a dungeon master, it's got some great ideas in there for you. It's got some great ideas if your players are interested in this kind of... I would almost go so far as to say body horror fantasy role-playing. I think that's what a lot of these aberrations are kind of trying to strive for. But it is a wonderfully set out book. I do regret the fact that I don't have my second and third edition stuff anymore. Not so much my fourth edition. I had pretty much everything for fourth edition, but sold it because I wasn't a fan of the system. And I know fifth edition is copying a lot of flack lately. I do want to explore Pathfinder second edition. I was a huge Pathfinder fan back in the day. But at the moment, I'm kind of branching out into other role-playing games. Primarily, the sessions we're playing at the moment are Vampire the Masquerade. I just got my hands on Werewolf 5th edition, Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th edition. I want to try the Marvel role-playing game. There's so much there that I want. I can't kind of have everything, and I get that. But if you can get your hands on some of these old 3rd edition books, even if you primarily play 5th edition, or even if you play Pathfinder, these 3rd edition source books are fucking phenomenal. So yeah, that was Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. Go check out our other videos. I've got a lot of book reviews, board game playthroughs, role-playing game reviews that you might enjoy. But until then, everyone, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.